G'day, Dave here, and we're looking again at Ecclesiastes from chapter 5. Ecclesiastes is an extraordinary book. The writer is embarking on a quest to find meaning and purpose in life, and yet as he explores things and tries things and looks at things, he keeps finding dead ends. And so you get this refrain, meaningless, meaningless, everything is meaningless, and it's just a chasing after the wind. It's there and then it's gone. You just can't catch it. Now, we're going to pick it up at chapter 5 of Ecclesiastes, and the topic has to do with how we speak and how we listen, and particularly how we go about listening to God. So let me read to you from Ecclesiastes 5, the first 3 verses. Guard your steps when you go to the house of God. Go near to listen rather than to offer the sacrifice of fools who do not know what they do wrong. Do not be quick with your mouth. Do not be hasty in your heart to utter anything before God. God is in heaven and you are on earth, so let your words be few. A dream comes when there are many cares, and many words mark the speech of a fool. How do you speak and how do you listen when it comes to God? When I was a student back in primary school and sadly through into high school, my school reports were always much the same. Dave talks too much. He distracts the people around about him. If Dave would listen more to the teacher and speak less, he might learn something. I was considered to be capable of learning, and yet I was too often talking to take on board what was being said. I hope I've learnt something since then. But what Ecclesiastes is getting at here is the importance of paying attention to the Word of God. I don't mean necessarily God speaking in your head or voices coming out of the clouds, although if God is there and God is real, he can certainly do that. But God promises to speak through the Bible. The Bible is self-consciously the Word of God. And so how do you come to approach the Bible? Now, for some of us, it might be when we're going to church. So with what attitude do we come to listen to the Bible at church? Here's a warning. I've actually stood at the back of church from time to time and just watched what people are doing. Now, this is previous churches, not my current church, I'm quick to say. But as I've looked around, I've seen people on their phones. And you think, okay, they've got the Bible open. No, they've got Facebook or Instagram or Candy Crush or something ridiculous open. And you might say, well, look, I'm very, very good at multitasking, but I doubt that what's happening. I suspect that what's going on is rather than realize that we're listening to the Creator, the God of this universe is chosen to speak to us, it's just words. And we're tuning out and tuning into other things. The Bible warns us, Ecclesiastes warns us, that that's to be a fool. That's a foolish behavior. See, God is the creator of all things, and we're just part of the creation. For us to think that we know more than God, it's just the height of arrogance. We need to listen to God. We need to hear what God has to say. We shouldn't think that we have something to tell God, although we are invited to speak to God, not to teach him, but to ask for his help. We need God. He doesn't need us. So our words should be few and our listening should be focused. How do you go about listening to the Word of God? If you're doing it at church, or if you're doing it in a small group, or if you're doing it on your own, are you actually focused? Are you setting aside the time and the space? Are you removing the distractions? Turn off the phone, turn off the Facebook, open up the Bible, a real Bible, very, very helpful. Or if you've got your phone and the Bible's there on the phone, don't be flicking between things. Just ask God, pray, God help me to understand what you're saying. And listen, maybe scribble down a few things that you learn. Maybe think and pray about how you need to change or in your behavior or your thinking in response to the Word of God. You might be thinking, where am I not trusting God that I should be trusting him? Where is my life out of step with God's that I need to reorient it? And how do I need God's help? Friends, what a privilege to be able to hear from God. Let's take the time to listen well. Second thing that he talks about here in verses 4 through to 7 are the importance of being honest before God and not making empty promises. So verse 6, when you make a vow to God, do not delay to fulfill it. He has no pleasure in fools. Fulfill your vow. It's better not to make a vow than to make one and not fulfill it. Do not let your mouth lead you into sin, and do not protest to the temple messenger, my vow was a mistake. Why should God be angry at what you say and destroy the work of your hands? Much dreaming and many words are meaningless. Therefore, fear God. So the Bible warns us about making empty promises. Again, it's this problem with our words. It's very easy for us to promise the world when we're in a spot of bother, but then once we get out of that trouble, just forget what it is that we've promised. And I wonder whether you've done that with God. I mean, we say to God, God, get me out of this state, get me out of this problem. God, save me from this. God, do this for me. And if you do, I will. And I wonder if we follow through with that very often. See, when it comes to God, we don't need to pretend. We don't need to put on a show. We don't need to have a mask that shows us to be something different to who we truly are. Because don't you think God can see behind the mask? Don't you think that he actually knows what we're truly like? See, if there is a God, and this God can be known, and this God knows us, then there's no point in pretending. In fact, the great news of the Bible is we don't have to pretend. That God knows us in our worst times. He knows our darkest secrets. He knows when we're mouthing off, and he knows when we're hypocritical. God knows when we're not listening properly and when we're distracted by other things. God knows the depths of our heart, and God knows the fears and anxieties and struggles that we have. And in all of this, he reaches out to us. When you get to the New Testament, you discover that there's no point in making empty promises to God. There's no point in thinking it's what you do for God that really matters. It's what God has done for you, offering to forgive you through Jesus. Take the time to really listen to what he has to say about that. It's worth hearing. It'll change your life. It'll change your eternity. Thank you.